Welcome to the Peter King Podcast, live from Green Bay. Only it isn't live when you see it. It's live when we're doing it right now. And then when you either see it or listen to it, it'll be either on tape or whatever they call tape in only words or only audio. So I don't know what that is. Anyway, we're here in Green Bay, and I'm joined by my good friend Kalyn Kahler. Now, for those who don't know Kalyn works for The Athletic. She covers the National Football League. She does some really good investigative work. She has recently reported on the Northwestern hazing scandal. She just does a fabulous job. And the reason that Kalyn is here today, it's because it's a little reunion because I formerly worked with Kalyn. She was a colleague at the MMQB, which was my website, my microsite as it was called, at Sports Illustrated. So I wanted Kalyn to come on to talk about some NFL stories that are percolating right now, to talk about the Green Bay Packers, because you were here today reporting on the Packers. But also, I think it's really, really important that we start off. Now I'm gonna hold this for a second because you are gonna tell a story in a minute. But first, I do want to tell what we're going to do on this podcast today. So we're going to have three guests as we go along in the show. Our first guest is going to be 2019 National Football League Most Valuable Player, Lamar Jackson. He will be joining us. I recorded this last week in Owings Mills, Maryland at Ravens training camp. Then we'll be joined by free agent signing tight end of the Atlanta Falcons, Jonnu Smith, reunited with Arthur Smith in Atlanta. And then finally, you're going to hear from Bryce Young, the first pick in the draft, the Carolina quarterback. We talked to him in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Interesting conversation. He's such a nice young man, and it's weird to say that for a guy who has the sort of all the hopes and dreams of an NFL franchise in his hands. But Bryce Young still looking a little bit like he's 18 years old. But anyway, we'll talk to those three players a little bit later in the podcast. And then I'll give you a few thoughts going out about our trip and where we're going to be going in the next week before I join you next week from Denver with the podcast. So, Kalyn, I want to start off by you telling your favorite story about Peter King. Yeah. And your favorite story about Peter King came from one of these training camp trips to Atlanta, Georgia, a few years ago when you and I worked together at the MMQB. And you, I believe, were going to live stream our day on the training camp trip from Atlanta that day.
Yeah, we were big into social media back then. And Facebook Live had just been invented. So we were like, okay, we have to do a whole day of our training camp tour in our car, in the van, at the team stop, at dinner at Waffle House. I believe it started at Waffle House. When the day, after this event is when the day really began. So we were like, I told Peter the night before, I was very clear. I told you, we're going to be live the whole day. I said, when I knock on your hotel room door, I will already be live. This is very clear. The audience needs to know that I made this extremely clear to him. And so
I'm not so sure about that.
So I told him, I was like, and literally, so I knocked on his door, and I have a phone in my hand, like I'm clearly recording. So any sane person would look at me and know that I was recording. And he opened the door to his hotel room. It's like 6:30 in the morning, maybe like 6:45 at the latest. And he just opens the door and he looks like,
how did I look?
He looked terrible. He looked like so tired and like something had happened. And I was like, and I was, again, like the phone was in front of my face. And I was like trying to like make it clear, like I'm on camera, but I didn't want to say it. So I was like, good morning, Peter. Like, how are you? And he's like, I laundered my phone. And I was like, what? Or actually, I think what you said is, I don't have a phone anymore. I think that was the direct quote. And then I was like, what happened to it?
Then I said,
and then you said it.
Can I just repeat the line?
Yeah.
Here's how I said it. I laundered my phone.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
It was like the most depressed tone of voice. And I was like, oh no, because at the time he keeps saying we were colleagues, but like I was his assistant at the time. I was like the lowest, I was like, just out of college, I was working for Peter. And so I knew that the whole rest of my day was going to be figuring out how to get him a new phone. And was it the first time I don't know. There was like 2 times I had to replace your phone, and then a third time when, this is my other favorite story. You'll remember this when I say it. He accidentally tweeted his phone number out.
I did that, yeah.
He meant to DM it to, I believe,
Stacey James, the PR guy of the
Which I don't
Patriots.
know why you were Twitter DMing him and not texting him.
I don't know.
And instead of DMing
I was
Stacey
doing
James,
900 things at once, and I made a mistake. Can you accept the fact I made a mistake?
And he tweeted it out, and he was trying to get Stephon Gilmore. I remember this like yesterday. You were like, when can I get Stephon Gilmore? And then you sent your phone number. And it was a tweet to everyone. So then he gets all these calls from people who got his phone number off of Twitter.
I got 2,200 phone calls. That was the night I was writing my column. That was a Sunday night.
It was like a playoff
by
night.
Like, yeah,
it was like
by
a
like
game.
4:30 in the morning.
AFC Championship, probably.
I looked at the thing. I had missed 2,200 and something phone calls.
So then the next day, I don't even know how I did it this time, but I had to figure out how to get him a new phone number. And yeah, so that was an adventure.
Yeah, that was bad. But anyway, it seemed to work out. And the good thing is, you're still alive. I didn't kill you on any of these trips or on any of the misadventures that we had.
Right.
And
we can laugh about that now.
I don't think so.
And we laughed at the time as well. So
But I will just say this. I'm incredibly proud of what you have done.
Thank you.
You've really done great work. And I think the thing that I admire about you most is that you are dogged and you do not take no if you don't want to hear no. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have to take no, but you're very, very good at figuring a way to get to yes. Mm-hmm. And what I like about that is that, look, one of the reasons why you came to work for us, you were one of 3 applicants for the job, and the other 2 editors at the website, Mark Moravik and Matt Gagne, said, we got to hire Kalyn. I said, but the other 2 writers who have applied for this job are really more accomplished, or were more accomplished in college than Kalyn. Why Kalyn? And so Mark basically said, she's just going to get the job done, Yeah. And so anyway, glad to have you on the podcast. Let's talk about 2 or 3 topics. So you and I were at the Packers today.
Yes.
And I'm going to end up writing next week in my column about Jordan Love. And Jordan Love seems like a very, very nice guy, very careful guy. And he's had an in and out training camp, I would say. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that Matt LaFleur is depressed or think he's not going to make it or anything like that. But tell me what you've learned about this young quarterback, Jordan Love, stepping into huge shoes, and how you think he's going to do.
Yeah, I think you're right. It has been up and down, and today's practice in particular just showed that, because the offense in team period with Love with the starters, he threw an interception on his first play of team period. So that obviously was not a great start. And Jair Alexander, the corner, he didn't make the interception. I believe it was Darnell Savage who made it. But Jair started chirping at the offense, saying things like, let's go, challenging them basically. And I talked to Jair after, and he was like, I didn't like how our offense started. They started out really flat, and that's not okay. Like, I will not accept that. And so he was chirping at them to sort of like get them back into it. And by the end of practice, by the next team period, they finished with 2 touchdowns. Jordan Love did. So that was much better. But I do think I don't know what to think about him quite yet. I think we need to see him, and I don't know what their plan is for if he's going to get any preseason action. I'm sure he won't get significant preseason action, but I don't know that we can really make any judgments at this point. But Jair, I asked him what should we know about Jordan? Like, we don't really know anything about Jordan. What should we know about him? And even some of the reporters here were like, just chatting with them off to the side, they were like, yeah, we don't really know what to make of him yet as a person, not even as a player. They're like, we didn't really talk to him much as a backup. Like, I'm not sure what his personality is like. I'm not sure, much about him at all. So I asked Jair, what should we know about him? And Jair said, well, he really cares. And then Jair told me, so they had Family Fest here, I believe it was Saturday night, and Jordan, the offense did not play well. I don't know the exact stats, but it wasn't a good day for the offense.
Right.
And so Jair said afterwards in the locker room, he asked Jordan, how do you think you guys did? And Jair is pretty sassy and as a personality, and he was like, I knew how they did. I saw it. He was obviously there, right? So he knows that the offense didn't play well, but he wanted to know what Jordan would say. He wanted to know what Jordan's answer would be, because that was going to tell him a lot about who this quarterback is and how he views the game in his own game. And he said that Jordan was really upset about it and was frustrated and was in the cold tub or the hot tub or both, in one of the tubs, with film, watching film already. And he said that he and Jordan were the last people in the building there until about midnight. And I'm sure they probably finished around, 9, I would say. Like, I think it was at 6 or 7. So, they were there pretty late after this fan fest. And Jair said that really meant a lot to him to see that Jordan was, 1, not happy with the performance, and 2, willing to put in extra time already that night. And he's like, if he had, if he'd been okay with that, I would have had a problem. But he's like, his head is in the right place.
Yeah, the one thing that I think Matt LaFleur likes about what he sees so far, look, when Matt LaFleur walked into this job, it was going to be hard to coach Aaron Rodgers in a lot of things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was going to do some different things on offense, and LaFleur gave me this example, which I thought was really, really good. He said, so Aaron Rodgers has probably the best cadence in recent NFL history, drawing people offside. Nobody does it better than he does, and all this. So he said, I don't want to tell him anything about that. It's perfect. But now he wants to take Jordan Love, and he wants to go strip it right down to the bare walls and teach him everything about the cadence. Mm-hmm. And he said, the reason why I think that's important is because I want everything to be built properly. I don't want to skip any steps. Yeah. So even though Jordan Love has done some work with the cadence before, now the work to do it perfectly, in the gospel of Matt LaFleur, begins in this off season, in this training camp. So I look at it and I say, let's look at where Jordan Love is right now. He's learning a lot of the mechanical things for the first time. Mm-hmm. He's learning how to say these monstrously long plays in the huddle, like every play, instead of just a few plays of practice, because he's the understudied Aaron Rodgers. And then he's doing it with 2 second-year wide receivers. A third wide receiver is going to play a lot, Jaden Reed, who's a rookie tight end. And so how in the world do you expect in that situation to hit the ground running? Right. In fact, if I were a Green Bay Packers opponent, I would really want to play you early. Yeah. Because I think that early is going to be a problem for this team. Mm-hmm. But I don't sense, in talking to the brass or a couple of the leading players, I don't sense alarm bells going off about Jordan Love. We'll see how he plays. Yeah. But I think anybody, I'd never forget this. Aaron Rodgers gets drafted in 2005. And so at the time, I'm making trips through training camps, and I remember 05, 06, 07 coming to Green Bay, and Bob McGinn, who covered the Packers for so long, was kind of roasting Aaron Rodgers. He was not playing well. And I just said to myself, well, if Rodgers gets roasted, and let's think back to 92 when Brett Favre takes over, and he's getting killed for throwing all those interceptions. So, again, Jordan Love might not make it. I don't
Right.
know. But I think to make any value judgment very early with all of those situations in play, I think is probably wrong. I want to ask you one other question about this team. So I talked to several people here while I was here and said, you're sort of a unique team. You operate kind of as a continuum. When the expiration date is nearing the end, even on a Hall of Fame quarterback, he gone, and you go with the next guy. So what do you think of that? And what do you think players think of that?
I think it was the right move in this scenario because Aaron was so clearly just done.
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't even know that it was really like a business choice. It was like just the logical, like, all right, like this isn't working personality wise. We're not meshing anymore. Like we've gotten what we can get out of this relationship and like this contract and this player. So it made sense from a business sense. And then also just from, just logically when you looked at the team. And so, as a player, I don't know what I would think of that. I would think like it just kind of shows you like, again, I think the players all are very aware that like no matter who you are, your time will come. I think they're all very aware of like the truth of the NFL, of the business side of the NFL. And I think they all learn that really early on in their careers. Like something or another will happen, whether it's a teammate, like all the Colts players right now witnessing what's happening with Jonathan Taylor, I'm sure, going through the same process in their minds. So I think I think they all already have a sense of that. But here, I think it's very clear. The other thing I will say is that about the Packers before we move on, they're not going to say it's a rebuilding year here, but I think it really is.
Oh, it is.
Obviously,
no question. Yeah.
And the one position that I think gives it away, aside from everything else, when you look at their backup quarterbacks right now, they just released Danny Etling, who was the only quarterback who had experience, aside from Jordan Love, in this quarterback room. And they drafted Sean Clifford, 5th round, I think, from Penn State. And then they have their third quarterback is Alex Magoo, who was the USFL MVP, which is actually a really cool signing to see someone kind of jump from an alternative league to the NFL. And he was previously in the NFL, so he's back in the NFL. But they don't have veteran if Jordan Love gets hurt, they have a rookie 5th rounder or a USFL MVP who has never played in an NFL game.
But I will say this, just my thought. I think they're going to pick up a veteran
you think so?
At some point.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was interesting listening to the press conference of Matt LaFleur today, and I forget how he worded it, but he basically said, this isn't the final roster.
Right, okay.
So everybody hang on.
Like
for a
relax,
minute.
yeah.
So who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know what they'll do. Here's the other thing I wanted to ask you. So you cover the NFL, you work on NFL stuff, except when you're sort of delving into the Simone Biles story.
Yeah.
Because you're sort of a gymnastics person. You covered her in Hoffman Estates, Illinois over the weekend. But tell me something that you're working on or you're on the verge of writing or you just recently have written that you think is really, really interesting and maybe a little bit of an untold story right now about the NFL. Tell me what interests you right now that you think is going to be a story this year.
I think there's a few things, but one of the things you actually already just mentioned which is cadences. Like I meant to write this last year and then I just never got around to it, but I have interviewed a lot of backup quarterbacks and their perspective on like how they have to sound exactly like the starter, with the cadence, like down to the rhythm and even the tone of voice that they use so that when they come into a game, they're not confusing the offensive line and causing penalties along the line. So that's something that I've been working on for like a year, but like not really because I kind of forgot about it. But I'm going to revive that soon. So that's something interesting. That's just like an inside the game thing.
But
that
you
don't
know
really
what
think about.
you know what you did that was really interesting. I thought was you did a lot of stuff with backup quarterbacks because you did a backup quarterback podcast.
Yeah.
Which was fun, Which
I need to. I don't know when my season 2 is going to be. Like I'm waiting for like more. Like planning at The Athletic, essentially, because I think we're going to turn it into more of a video component instead of
Yeah.
mostly a podcast. Because I think it could be really fun as like a mainly YouTube thing. So I haven't like planned out a second season, but I did interview Kendall Hinton, the Broncos wide receiver, practice squad wide receiver who had to play quarterback in 2020 when their entire quarterback room broke the COVID protocol and was put on the COVID list, which is just like an iconic moment in backup quarterback history, in my opinion. And I was like, he was like my dream guest, like. And it was so interesting to hear from him because he really thought, and I thought this was so honest and candid from him. I was like, did you think you were going to play well? Because he'd played in college.
Yeah.
He had been an
Wake
ACC
Forest,
quarterback.
right?
Yeah, Wake Forest. And he's like, yeah. He was like, yeah, I really.
And it was a debacle.
It was
a total
horrible.
debacle. Yeah.
It could not have.
But the reason it was a debacle is that he found out 10 minutes before the game, or 24 hours before the game.
He basically said after his first play, he realized his visions of grandeur died immediately.
Yeah.
He was like, it took one play for me to be like, oh no, like
this is bad.
This is not going to go well. 1 out of 9
or something.
Yeah, he was 1 for 9. Yeah. It was really bad.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. So that's something that I've been working on that at some point I will finish.
Yeah.
And then I think like something else I'm just going to keep an eye on. I don't really have a specific angle with it right now, is just the gambling suspensions. Like that's obviously been big news this offseason.
You know, I'll tell you what I find interesting about that. I wrote this in Football Morning in America this week, that a general manager on this trip told me, he said, what really worries me is that I can tell you at some point a player is going to just give a tip to his uncle, might be a little down on his luck.
Yeah.
And who knows, will the uncle make $5,000? And
right.
And so people
and
will start.
That's a violation, technically.
Yeah, it is. People will start looking into it. Hey, what's his relationship? And, one of the things I think, and the NFL has done a good job of hiding exact ways that they can be on somebody's trail.
Yeah.
Okay? Because, listen, in the old days, it was hard to trace things like this, but it isn't a paper trail anymore. It's basically a virtual trail that the NFL can more easily chase and follow. So if I were a player, and especially because these apps are so easy to use, I had an interesting talk the other day with a player in the Atlanta training camp who basically said, listen, no, it was in Cleveland, who said essentially, he goes, why would you bet?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway? Maybe in the off season, if you want to bet, that's fine. But it's insane that you think that it's worth it to try to beat the rules.
Right.
When, in his mind, it was a great line. He goes, nobody's any good about gambling anyway.
Right.
So why would you think you can beat the system? And anyway, but I agree with you. Something is going to happen with a big player who shouldn't be doing this and stupidly does it because so many players think they're bulletproof. And
the one thing I learned from my reporting, which is, I think, a sign that there is going to be more of this, is that the way that I understand it is it's really initiated by the state. So states audit violations, and within their own like laws and regulations, like they have a lot of language about, athletes using sports betting apps. So like if a licensed operator like FanDuel like catches on that there's a player placing a bet or there's a bet coming from a place that's suspicious, they have an obligation to report it to the state. So when the state gets word of that, or when the state does their own audit, that is when the NFL gets involved with this. And the reason that's scary is because if a state hasn't done its own audit like this year, it doesn't mean they're not going to do it in like 2 months or next year. So if you're a player and you placed a bet last season from your facility and you now know, oh, that wasn't allowed, but you didn't really understand it at the time when you did it, because I think a lot of guys weren't clear on the policy, but now they definitely are.
Yeah.
You still could get busted for that, even though it happened like a year ago.
Right.
So it's like I don't know I don't know if there is a statute of limitations on this stuff, but it's kind of scary because it might be 2 years old and you might still get caught.
The weird thing about the NFL is that they can suspend guys for things they did before they signed an NFL contract.
Yeah.
And so, look, I don't know what's going to happen with this, but we definitely have not seen the last scandal with betting on football. Kalyn, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks, Peter.
Look forward to reading you during the year and learning a lot about the sport I cover from you.
Thanks, and it's great to be reunited.
All right. So we're going to go right now from Green Bay to Owings Mills, Maryland, to the training camp of the Baltimore Ravens. And we're going to take a break first, but after our break, we're going to get to Lamar Jackson. At Ravens camp in Owings Mills, Maryland with the Lamar Jackson. Lamar, did you ever think, really, that you weren't going to be here?
To be honest with you, Mr. Peter, I thought I was going to be here. Throughout the whole process, it's just part of the business, all the this and that, hearing different topics of what's going on between myself and the Ravens. But I'm here now, and I'm grateful. I'm happy. I feel like the fans are happy. I feel like my teammates are happy. The whole staff is happy. And like I said, I'm happy.
Is it a different feeling for you now, being secured, having signed, than it was the last couple of years when there were all these questions about it?
To be honest, I'll say yeah, just because of the question part, all of the question parts. But, early on in my career, like the first 3 years, I wasn't hearing anything about it. It was pretty smooth. And then all of a sudden when the topic of, contract signing, the new deal and stuff like that, that's when I started hearing other things I disagreed with. But like I said, I'm happy. Everyone else is happy, and we good.
One more question about it.
Say it again?
One more question about that.
Okay, cool.
Okay?
Okay.
What caused you the night that you called Eric DeCosta and he's watching the NBA game on TV and you said something to the effect of, send me that contract and I'll sign it, or whatever it is you said? What went through your mind after seeming that it was so far away?
Actually, Eric had sent me an offer that I was pretty cool with. And as you can see, we all are cool with it. Like I said, it was just an offer I agreed with. And I was like, just send it over. And then not knowing that his team had lost that night, but I'm happy I made his night.
I want to ask you one question about Zay Flowers and this year's team. You wanted Zay Flowers to get drafted. And in fact, when you announced that you had agreed to the contract, like 4 hours later, the Ravens draft Zay Flowers. What was your role in drafting Zay Flowers?
I can't really tell you my role in drafting him. I told Eric, I just sent him a message like, I like this dude a lot. His game is crazy. He's from South Florida, just like I am. And soon, like you said, I signed the deal. And next thing you know, he was drafted. It was like, that was all God right there. That was all God.
Let's talk a little bit about this offense right now. Mm-hmm. What I've read, what I've heard, it's going to be a faster-paced offense. Mm-hmm. If you had averaged 65 plays a year ago a game, maybe it'll be 70, 72, 74. Yep. Tell me your initial impressions working with Todd Monken on this offense.
My first initial reaction, it's a lot of fast-paced, a high-tempo offense more. I say a little bit of college in it, like system-wise, but it's like explosive. A lot of passing, a lot of down-the-field passing, a lot of get the ball out quick, to my fast guys, and just get the ball out of my hand faster. And I'm liking it so far. I'm enjoying it. Do you think it's more suited to you than the offenses you've run here in the past? I believe so. But the offenses in the past was also smooth, but it's new season, new age players, different kinds of players coming into the league, and a lot of faster guys, I'll say from back in the days, and when I first got into the league, so I guess it was just meant for Coach Todd to be here.
I want to ask you two other things. Number one, the last 2 years, you've missed a total of 34% of the offensive snaps because of injury. Mm-hmm. Do you view those as fluky injuries, or do you believe that you may have a problem staying healthy.
I believe they are fluky injuries.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't had a problem before, but like you said, the last 2 years, and that's 34%. So I doubt I'll have that problem again.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You feel totally healthy right now entering this year?
Yes, sir, I do.
Yeah.
66% more to go.
So the other thing I wanted to ask you is you get Odell Beckham in this offense, and I think about it. I think of Odell Beckham, Zay Flowers, Isaiah Likely, Andrews.
Yeah.
It looks like to me you have quite a bit of weaponry, maybe more than you've ever had. How do you look at it?
I'll say, here and there. You can say, just because of the names, OBJ, Mandrews, he made himself a household name. Zay, second-year player. The other Zay Flowers, a rookie. Got Nelly, a new addition to our team. Bate, still on injury. Got Duve coming back. Pro coming back. We still got guys who were still in the system prior years who still developing, who's also good. But it's the new guys. We're gonna see what the offense do. But I believe the sky's the limit for us.
You got to be happy when Drake says you're his quarterback.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Were you surprised?
I was. But I was hyped. It's Drake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson, have a good year. Thanks.
Appreciate you, Mr. Peter.
My thanks to Lamar Jackson. Now let's go south to Flowery Branch, Georgia, with the Atlanta Falcons. And here's my conversation with a new Falcon, Jonnu Smith, the tight end. I'm with Jonnu Smith, the Falcons tight end, and maybe a little bit more than just a tight end, here in Flowery Branch, Georgia at the Falcons. And Jonnu, I remember watching you when you were with Arthur Smith with the Tennessee Titans. And there was a game or two where you're in the backfield, where you're split out wide, where you play tight to the formation as a traditional tight end. And now you're back with Arthur Smith in a place that a lot of people look at as a positionless offense, where everybody is going to learn to play a lot. What is that like for you?
That's who I am. I've considered myself a positionless player. Ever since I picked up a football, it was nothing that I ever felt I had limitations on. And, that kind of led me to a lot of the success in my career, from high school and, obviously the NFL. So, being able to be in conjunction with a man that believes in that and knows, that I am positionless, and being able to, take advantage of, get me the ball, in many different areas on the field, and also, not only getting me the ball, but allow me to make plays for my teammates, from, various positions on the field. So to me, I believe that it's just another way to really exploit all of the abilities and the talents that I'm blessed with, man. So, it's an honor for me to be in a position where I feel like it's the best position for me.
It probably was not a difficult decision once you left New England to come to Atlanta.
Yeah, it was, it was bittersweet. It definitely was bittersweet. I had a great group of guys that I was surrounded by in that organization, in that locker room. And I learned a lot in New England, not only about, X's and O's, but myself, you know what I mean? And really kind of realized, what it is that I kind of want out of this game. And
what do you want out of this game?
To be me, man. And with that recipe, I know that it's a lot of success for me out there, and it's a lot of other people that'll benefit from that.
I want to ask you about playing for Arthur Smith. A lot of people really don't know him. He's not a big, famous Belichick, Tomlin, Harbaugh type of coach. And so how would you describe what it's like to play for him, and what's his offensive mind like?
Well, since I came in this league, Arthur Smith was one of the first men, actually before, I got in this league, Arthur Smith was a man that, I met that was obviously on staff with the Titans, and, one of the first, people I ever got to really talk to about X's and O's at this level. And he blew me out of the water. And
in terms of his knowledge.
In terms of his knowledge, absolutely. Yeah. I've been around the NFL coaching staff in college, and kind of getting to the NFL, you still don't know much, but even then, I just knew it was something different about this guy. You know what I mean? And obviously, I was correct. You know what I mean? He, the way he's just steadily grew over the years, not only the knowledge he possessed at that time, but the way he continued to improve and to grow and to push himself. And to demand the best of himself and his players. That's why he's in this position for a reason. And he's obviously, man, just an amazing coach, but he's even more of an amazing person. And I think that's why it's a great fit for everybody in this locker room.
I want to ask you one more thing. If I think of the term positionless player, maybe the first three people who come to mind would be Cordero Patterson, Jonnu Smith, and Bijan Robinson, who we don't know all that much about now, the rookie early in training camp. But what's it like kind of to have three of you guys? And maybe even more, because Drake London has some versatility. Kyle Pitts plays in and out. So Absolutely. What's it like to be in your meeting rooms now?
It's exciting, honestly, man, and I think it pushes. We all push each other. Just the different ability that each of us possess, but all of us being able to be that word that you said, positionless. Man, you can only imagine what type of energy that brings to that room, and just wanting to go out there and compete and do something better than the guy in front of you did before. And you look at the guy in front of you, he's a freak of nature. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know what I mean, man? I haven't really been I've been a part of a lot of great teams, a lot of great offensive rooms, but the level of versatility, I haven't been around it like this, man. So again, an honor to be a part of it.
Jonnu Smith, have a fun year here in Atlanta. Thanks a lot for joining me.
Thank you.
Yep. My thanks to Jonnu Smith. And before we get to the first pick in the draft, let's take a break, and we'll be back with Bryce Young. So before we get to Bryce Young, I'll tell you a little bit of an inside football story. Basically what happens after practice usually, I'm with my crew and we're waiting for players, coaches, everything. So Bryce Young comes over and he's looking at me, and I can tell, have I met this guy before? Do I know this guy? He really doesn't. I met him at the Combine, and I said to him, hey, Bryce, Peter King with NBC, I met you at the Scouting Combine. He said, I remember you were over there at such and such a place, and he remembered, and he's only done 9,400 interviews since, and I talked to him for 7 minutes in his life, and I just thought, it's an interesting guy, and I think sort of really kind of likes to please, likes to get along, but I now know what Frank Reich meant when he said his memory, his football memory about plays is totally, totally phenomenal. His memory about a lot of things, I think, is phenomenal. So here is Bryce Young in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Here in Spartanburg, South Carolina, Panthers training camp, Bryce Young, the first pick in the NFL draft, already been named the starter of the Carolina Panthers. When Frank Reich told you that you were going to enter training camp as the starting quarterback of an NFL team, what did you think?
Obviously it's super humbling. It's a blessing, and really try to just be in the moment. There's so much I've been wanting to work on and focus on in camp. Really it's been a lot of that, a lot of meetings, a lot of talking, a lot of me trying to grow on the field in the meeting room and everything. So it's humbling. It's a huge vote of confidence. But at the same time, it just a reminder. I got to keep working. I got to get to work. I got to improve on things. I got to make sure I'm locked in and dialed in for training camp because things are right around the corner. So it was very humbling, but also a good push and a good reminder to make sure that I'm working.
Bryce, has there been a moment early in training camp where you've basically said, this is my welcome to the NFL moment, I'm not in college anymore, or not really?
I think for the most part it's more off the field stuff. We had a talent show.
How'd you do?
I'm biased. I had fun. I had a good time. I don't know.
What did you sing?
I sang a song by Keisha Cole called Love. But I had a good time. You good, DJ? You want? No? All right. Talk to the world, please.
I'm just here to say I'm grateful for this
DJ
young man right here.
Yeah?
He's such a ray of sunshine.
I'm grateful for you too, man. Let's see you.
So you liked what you did in the show, and you felt like
I had a good time, personally. I don't know. I didn't sound great, so I don't know.
I
how
heard you
everyone
got a
else
good
did.
ovation though.
Oh, just try to put a little performance in there. That's all people are looking for. But it's fun.
What was interesting about watching practice, and I only watch one practice, but what was interesting is that you threw the ball away 4 times. You ran out of bounds twice. And I hear that you have basically been told, listen, it's really important in this league. If it's not there, throw it away, live to fight another day. Is that something you're still getting used to? Have you always done that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's something that I've always kind of believed in and tried to, embody. But of course, at the step up and, in a new league, you get reassured that, and you know just how more precious points are at this level and how more important it is to not turn the ball over. So, I think in practice is finding that healthy balance of me trying to take, game-like reps and making sure that I'm going at full speed and thinking like a game. And, in that being aggressive but not being careless and making sure that I'm smart with the ball and also pushing the limits and finding out what I can do, making mistakes in practice because, at a certain time, this is the time to test things out and see what I can and can't do for when game rolls around and, trying to find that balance. But it's definitely something I've always embodied. And we talk about it a lot as a unit. So, I try to do everything I can to take care of the ball.
Do you feel like you're ready in a month? Will you be ready in a month to be a starting quarterback in the NFL?
Yeah, and, that's a credit to my coaches and to the people around me. For me, it's just doing my job, doing my part, going out and executing what the coaches are saying. Obviously, it's a new step, it's a new chapter, a new challenge, but I try to focus on what I can control. And, I just wanted to go out there and execute the game plan that the coaches write up, lean on my teammates, try to put them in positions because I have a great 10 other guys around me every time I'm on the field. So because of that, I don't, I'm not, again, it's a step up and it's a new challenge, but, I'm just focusing on my part, executing and leaning on the people around me who have already, pushed me and got me better. So.
What would you say has been the benefit for you of having some veteran quarterbacks like Josh McCown, your position coach, like Andy Dalton, who's been in the league for a long time? Take me into your conversations with them and some of the things they have helped you with.
Man, if I try to tell you about every conversation we had, we would never leave Spartansburg. But it's great to be able to have those guys in the room with me. Josh, Andy, again, so much years of experience. Coach Reich the same way. We have a great quarterback room and guys that have had so much experience, not just around the league or in the league, but playing the position and just talking about what they've seen before, but what it looks like from the pocket, what they've gone through. There's a bunch of times we talk about concept or I've asked questions, and it's not just, oh yeah, you probably should do this. It's, hey, we should do this because back here in 2018 versus this on third down, this happened and this. So it's so much years of experience that I'm able to pick off of and learn from. And as a young guy, I ask all the questions I can, try to be a sponge and soak in all the knowledge and wisdom that's in that room because there's so much there.
Have you felt any significance playing football now? Because everybody has talked about your height. You told me at the scouting combine, I've always been this size, so I've learned to play the position this size. Has it been at all different at this level?
I don't think from a physical standpoint, again, it's there's challenges for sure. Learning a new system, getting accustomed to new guys. There's, different defenses. You're going up against different guys. And, there's no shortage of challenges that have pushed me and are making me a better player and that I have to keep working on and being better. But, yeah, I don't, height-wise, I think everyone is taller than me, which it's been like that again. So, yeah, height-wise, I haven't seen anything. But again, there's a bunch of things I want to keep improving at, getting better at, and there's a bunch of challenges that this new league definitely does present. So I'm doing everything I can to keep working so that I could face those.
Bryce Young, have a great year.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
My thanks to Bryce Young and also to Jonnu Smith of the Falcons and also Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens. Also, thanks to Kalyn Kahler of The Athletic. for her help in the podcast here in Green Bay. Next week, I'll join you from Denver to discuss the last few stops on our trip. After here in Green Bay, we'll be going to Indianapolis, Chicago, and Kansas City. And I just might have an interesting tale to tell on the podcast next week. I will be throwing out the first pitch at the Quad City River Bandits game in Davenport, Iowa on Wednesday night. So come one, come all. And I just want to tell you this. If you haven't bought tickets already, I guarantee you, once word gets out that I'm going to be throwing out the first pitch, I mean, scalper fees, it'll be like a Taylor Swift show. You're going to have to pay $1,800 to get into the Quad City River Bandits on Wednesday night in Davenport, Iowa. So, look forward to talking to you next week from Denver. And thanks a lot for joining, experiencing, watching, listening to the Peter King Podcast. Have a great week, everybody.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.